So again, good afternoon everyone. Our first topic is the self from various perspectives, specifically philosophical perspective or view. So this lecture is from adapted to um, Professor Ronuel L. Del Rosario. So first, what is philosophy? Philosophy is the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence, especially in an academic discipline. It is a particular theory that someone has about how to live or how to deal with a particular situation. So, in the study of philosophy, we are guided by different philosophers who interprets different concepts and theories in their own way, di ba? If you gave them a certain concept, they going to interpret it in a different way. So basically, in philosophy, they ask why things are existing and why things are in reality and different nature of knowledge. So in philosophy, it is an academic discipline concerned with investigating the nature of significance of ordinary and scientific beliefs. It investigates the legitimacy of concepts by rational argument concerning their implications, relationships, as well as reality, knowledge, moral judgment, etc. So, in the field of philosophy, as I have said a while ago, they question the nature of existence, different beliefs. Just like in our previous discussion before, under the subject ethics, we were provided by different philosophers different ideas about certain concepts, diba? Much of philosophy concerns with the fundamental nature of self. So, most of the concerns daw in philosophy is the question of the fundamental nature of self sa sarili. So just like before, in our subject ethics, we question our morality. So under morality is also the self, diba? The Greeks were the ones who seriously questioned myths and moved away from them to understand reality and respond to perennial questions of curiosity, including the question of the self. So we're going to see the different interpretations of different philosophers on the concept of the self. The following are discussions of different perspectives and understanding of the self according to its prime movers, from philosophers of the ancient periods or ancient times to the contemporary period. So we're going to tackle the different views of the different philosophers on the concept of the self. The first period is under the pre-Socratic Socratics. The pre-Socratics are the philosophers Thales, Pythagoras, Parmenides, Heraclitus, Empedocles, and many more. We're concerned with answering questions such as what is the world really made up of? Why is the world the way it is? And what explains the changes that happens around us? So under the pre-Socratic period, these are the questions they normally reflect to on questioning the concept of the self. Ano nga ba ang ah, ano ba ang bumubuo sa mundo? Why is the world the way it is? Bakit ganito itong mundo? What explains the changes that happens around us? Bakit nangyayari ang mga bagay-bagay? Under the pre-Socratics, Arche, means the origin or source, the soul, the primal matter. The soul's movement is the ultimate arche of all other movements. So in the pre-Socratics, they believe that the your movements or the way you act is from the source, which is the soul. Arche has no origin outside itself and cannot be destroyed. Explains the multiplicity of things in the world. So in the pre-Socratics, they believe that everything you do is because of your soul. So these are the questions we need to reflect from that period. Do you agree that there is a difference between the body and the soul? So naniniwala ba kayo na meron tayong soul and our soul is different from our body? Do you think you have both? May soul ka ba? We know that we have body, but do you have a soul? What's the difference between the two? So by discussing, we need to reflect on these questions. Okay. So under the pre-Socratics period, here comes one philosopher, Socrates. So Socrates believed concerned with the problem of the self. The true task of the philosopher is to know oneself. The unexamined life is not worth living. Underwent a trial for corrupting the minds of the youth and succeeded made people think about who they are. The worst thing that can happen to anyone is to live but die inside. Every person is dualistic. So the dualistic concept here is the body and soul. But first, we need to reflect on this statement of him. The worst thing that can happen to anyone is to live but die inside. So as we know, there are people right now that they only live but sa loob nila they are dead, di ba? When you follow the things that other people tells you to do, but you don't want or you are not following the things that you really want to do, you are living but you are dead inside. So that's how I reflect this statement. So according to Socrates, man is a combination of body and soul. So a man has perfect and imperfect, which is the perfect is the soul and the imperfect is the body. So naniniwala si Socrates na ang tao ay binubuo ng katawan at ng soul. Next philosopher, Plato. There are three components to the soul. So si Plato naman naniniwala siya na there are three components of the soul. There is this rational soul, spirited soul, and the appetitive soul. The rational soul is the reasons or intellect, and intellect to govern affair. Spirited soul is the emotionals or emotions should be kept at bay, and appetitive soul is based on desire. So, ang soul daw natin ay nahahati or may iba't ibang bumubuo dito. This is the rational, di ba? The rational soul, we can connect it to our decision making, di ba? Spirited soul is yung the way we react to certain things, our emotions, and the appetitive soul is our desires. When these are attained, the human person's soul become just and virtuous. Kapag na-attain daw ang the balance of the three components of the soul, you as a person becomes just and virtuous. A virtuous person knows the balance between the good and the bad attitude. Sorry for that. Let's reflect on this question again. What happens to a person whose three components of the soul are imbalanced? Let's reflect. So, if a person is dominated by a rational soul, ito yung mga taong before they act, they think about it um, multiple times, di ba? Ito yung mga righteous. They are the... May mga taong ganun, di ba? Parang hindi nagkakamali sa buhay. Ganun. Ito namang spirited soul, if you are dominated by spirited soul, you are the emotional person. You, when decision making arises, you rely on your emotions. Bigla ka na lang umiiyak or kahit bigla kang nagagalit, ganun, na iirita ka agad-agad. And if you are dominated by appetitive soul, ikaw yung easy-go-lucky or you always satisfy your desires. Diba? So kayo, what happens to a person whose three components of the soul are imbalanced? How will you view if your three components of the soul are imbalanced? Ano kaya mangyayari sa inyo? Diba? Next philosopher, Saint Augustine. Saint Augustine is the spirit of man in medieval philosophy, following views of Plato but adds Christianity. Man is of a bifurcated nature. Part of man dwells in the world and yearns to be with the divine. Other part is capable of reaching immortality. Body dies on earth, soul lives eternally in spirit bliss with God. So si Saint Augustine ay pareho ng paniniwala nila ni Plato that there is a body and spirit, and with Socrates also. But Saint Augustine connected the concept of body and soul with Christianity. So dinagdag niya sa naniniwala si Saint Augustine na ang katawan ng tao ay mamamatay dito sa mundo at ang soul ay umaalis sa katawan mo at pumupunta kay God. So that is the interpretation of Saint Augustine in the concept of the self. #life goal. Do you believe in the concept of the soul coming to heaven after death? Naniniwala ba kayo na kapag namatay tayo ay pumupunta ang ating soul sa langit? So you can reflect on that right now. What makes us people different from animals? So I believe that this question, I can answer it by saying, according to these philosophers, we have soul, and I guess animals don't have soul. Yeah. Another philosopher. According to Saint Thomas Aquinas, man is a combination of matter and form. He defined matter as, or heil, common stuff that makes up everything in the universe, and form is the essence of a substance or thing, what makes it what it is. So, naniniwala si St. Thomas Aquinas na ang tao ay binubuo ng matter and form, a stuff and essence. The body of the human is similar to animal or objects, but what makes us a human is his essence. So, in our subject before in ethics, I've discussed to you the concept of essence. The purpose is the essence. So, naniniwala si Saint Thomas Aquinas na tayo ay isang matter, yung katawan, and the form is we have the purpose. Naniniwala si Saint Thomas Aquinas that the essence is the soul that makes us human. So these are the ancient views about the self. Pumunta naman tayo sa modern philosophy. So according to philosopher Rene Descartes, he is the father of modern philosophy. Human person composed of body and mind. There is so much that we should doubt. If something is so clear and lucid as not to be doubted, that's the only time one should believe. The only thing one can't doubt is existence of this self. So, naniniwala si Rene Descartes that the human person is composed of body and mind. Tama nga naman. We have the mind. That's why we have the rationality to think about things before doing those things, right? Then, he is famous with this statement, I think, therefore I am. The self is equal to the cogito, the thing that thinks, the thing that thinks. Tama nga naman. We are a thing that thinks. And the extension of mind and body. The body is a machine attached to the mind, which is true. It's the mind that makes the man. I am a thinking thing, a thing that doubts, understands, affirms, denies, wills, refuses, imagines, and perceives. So in the interpretation of Rene Descartes about the self, we can associate it in his statement, I think, therefore I am. If you think that you will graduate, di ba? Or if you think that you are achiever or an achieving student, you are an achieving student. Or if you think that you are pretty, because you think of it, therefore you are pretty, and so on so forth, di ba? Do you agree with the statements about the self, that the body and the soul is the man? What seems to be questionable in their conjectures? So ano ba yung nakikita niyong parang pagkakatulad nila, pagkakaiba, and ano ba yung nakikita niyong mga flaws sa mga sinasabi ng mga philosophers na ito? So, can you provide one? Another philosopher, David Hume. He disagrees with all the other aforementioned philosophers. So, hindi daw siya, or he doesn't agree to all those statements from different philosophers in their interpretation of the self. One can only know what comes from senses and experiences. The self is not an entity beyond the physical body. So hindi siya naniniwala sa soul, si David Hume. Unlike sa other philosophers na nabanggit natin, they believe that a man has a body and a soul. But according to David Hume, he doesn't believe in the concept of soul. You know that other people are humans not because you have seen their soul, but because you see them, hear them, feel them. So naniniwala siya na the common sense. Yeah? Nakita mo siya, narinig mo, naamoy mo, na ramdaman mo. You see them or you see the person as a man, therefore he's a man. He doesn't believe in the meta existence of soul. The self is nothing but a bundle of impressions and ideas. So what is impressions? It is a basic object of our experiences and sensation. Idea is the coping of impressions, not as real as impressions. Feeling mo lang yun. So, David Hume believed that a man is the body with impressions, and ideas. Yung mga nangyari sa atin, yun ang isa sa bumubuo sa atin bilang isang tao. Yung mga na-experience natin, yung mga iniisip natin, yeah, it is the body and the things that we've been through. Yan. That's how he interprets the self, David Hume. According to David Hume, the self is a collection of different perceptions which rapidly succeed each other. A self in a perpetual flux and movement. We want to believe that there is a unified, coherent self, soul, mind, etc. But actually, it is all just a combination of experiences. So David Hume believed that a man is not a body and a soul, but a body with experiences. Yan. Next philosopher, Immanuel Kant. He agrees with Hume that everything starts with perceptions, sensation, or impression. There's a mind that regulates this impression. Time, space, etc. are ideas that are one cannot find in the world, but is built in open in our minds. Apparatus of the mind. The self organizes different impressions that one gets in relation to his own existence. We need active intelligence to synthesize all knowledge and experiences. The self is not only personality, but also the seat of knowledge. So, naniniwala si Immanuel Kant sa paniniwala ni David Hume na we are a body and a mind. So, that's it. So, a question. How do you feel about the discussion so far? So, di ba, there are philosophers who believe that we are a body and mind. There are philosophers who believe that we are body and soul. So, sino ang sa tingin nyo mas nagkakaroon kayo ng idea sa katotohanan? Sino kaya? Diba? According to Gilber Ryle, denies the internal non-physical self. What truly matters is the behavior that a person manifests in his day-to-day life. Looking for the self is like entering LU and looking for the university. The self is not an entity one can locate and analyze, but simply the convenient name that we can use to refer to is to the behavior that we make. So sinabi niya that the self is not an identity that one can locate. Hindi siya parang isang bagay na hinahanap mo or mahahanap mo, but it is a behavior. That is true because we interpret also the self in different ways, di ba? According to MERLEAU-PONTY, a phenomenologist who says that the mind-body bifurcation is an invalid problem. Mind and body are inseparable. One's body is his opening towards his existence to the world. The living body, his thoughts, emotions, and experiences are all one. So according to MERLEAU-PONTY, he believed that the body, and just like Hume and Kant, we are a body and experiences, thoughts, and emotions. If you hate this subject, MERLEAU-PONTY understands you because it's really hard to understand this subject. Kasi ang dami nating we're going to tackle about the different interpretations of different people about the concept, the self. So do you have any questions so far? So this presentation is actually encoded sa inyong Edmodo. Do you have access to your Edmodo already?